right, just hit go live. Ooh, that was a heck of a crack in the chair. That wasn't very good. Okay. So, there we are. Share, copy. Come on. Right, hang on. Oh, goodness. Oh, don't sneeze now. That wouldn't be very good. Oh, I forgot to. I shouldn't tell you while we're on. I forgot to tell you something that happened with TCP. Can you tell if anybody's on?
On the Facebook page?
Yes.
Let's see.
Right now it says live one. Maybe not. I always thought that you kept that up on another screen. Perhaps not. Just gonna let somebody know that if you're there and watching, that it's.
I don't see you on the Facebook page.
Never do.
No, I mean I don't see the stream.
Well, it's there. I'm sharing it.
Okay.
So. Oh, 458.
There we go. Okay, now I see it. Cool.
Anybody in there?
One person.
That's probably me. Two. That's you. Let's see. doing all the national outlets. I don't even know how many of them allow it. But come on. We're doing it. Anyway. Almost there. Almost there. Almost there. One of the national outlets I started sending to us, Free Speech TV. I don't think they're allowing it, but we're trying. We're trying. 5 p.m., so we're okay. Let's get back to the group. Oops. No. Come on. Come on, come on. Come on, come on. Okay. 501. Oh boy. Down. Okay, and share. Share to page. Post. Share. Group. Okay, here we go. And that. Okay, here we go, George. Here comes 101.
Do you want a man for president who's seasoned through and through, but not so doggone seasoned that he won't try something new? A man who's old enough to know
and young enough to do.
Well, it's up to you, it's up to you. It's strictly up to you.
But it's Kennedy, 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 Kennedy.
Do you want a man with spirit who is not afraid to fight?
A man whose record shows that he will fight for what is right.
A loyal man who'll bring the job a fresh new point of view. Well, it's up to you, it's up to you. It's strictly up to you.
'Cause it's Kennedy, 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 Kennedy. Kennedy, Kennedy, Kennedy.
And do you deny to any man the right he's guaranteed to be elected president, no matter what his creed?
It's promised in the Bill of Rights to which we must be true.
So it's up to you, it's up to you. It's strictly up to you.
And it's Kennedy, 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 Kennedy for me. Kennedy, 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 Kennedy.
Do you like a man who answers straight, a man who's always fair?
We'll measure him against the others, and when you compare, you cast your vote for Kennedy and the change that's overdue. So it's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you. Yes, it's Kennedy, 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 Kennedy for me. Kennedy, 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 Kennedy.
Oh, there we go. There we go. There we go. Welcome, 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 welcome. You get 4 welcomes this week from my humble second bedroom here in the Saucon Valley, part of the Lehigh Valley in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, part of these United States on planet Earth, the only one we have. Third rock from the sun in the Terran solar system, part of the Milky Way galaxy. This is the Kennedy Effect for the 7th of March, 2021. We are already, oh my goodness, wow, this is unique. Hang on, folks. We got already a caller. I can't imagine. I am going to probably, the rest of my hair is probably either going to turn white or fall out. Your first name and where you are calling from, please.
This is Jordy. I'm not going to make your hair fall out.
Jordy, you probably will make my hair fall out. How are you, my friend?
I'm okay. Is the audio okay? Because I have you on too, so I'm like.
I don't hear me quite yet, and you know, hey, it's a matter of argument as to who wants to hear it in the first place. So, hey, how are you, sir?
You know, I never know. Let me tell you a little something. This is a freebie. I always struggle with that question. I always struggle with that question because I'm like, I just overthink it, and I'm like, does Jeff really want to know how I am? Do I have the right?
I do. I ask. If I didn't want to know, I wouldn't ask.
You did ask, but here's something I've been doing as a variation recently, especially talking to people who maybe have got a lot on their plate. I've been saying, what's a good thing about your day?
Okay. Hopefully this is a good thing about your day.
This is a good thing about my day. Good thing about my day, we had a really great meeting. You were there for part of it.
I apologize for not being there for more of it, but we got to get
you out.
We got to get on this and get this baby going, you know?
Yeah. But I think one thing that I was curious about and I don't like, one of the things that's happened to me is I've been very involved in sort of local state politics is, in the last few years compared to my prior existence is I don't pay as much attention to national news stories and national political stories. So I really don't get why I think it's 8 Democrats voted in the Senate to not include the minimum wage in the COVID relief bill. Have I got the facts right?
That was largely a procedural vote. Yes, they would tell you that it is. Well, some of them flat out don't support it, as in Senators Manchin and Sinema. They flat out don't support a $15 minimum wage. But that particular vote that you're referring to was largely a procedural vote, which is what you did mention that to a point. It was about Senator Sanders' amendment to bypass the parliamentarians' recommendation that it not be included in the COVID relief package and be included in the bill regardless of the parliamentarians' decision. I'm kind of stepping all over myself, but that's basically what that was. But you are correct. Eight Democratic senators voted against that amendment. I do not have all of them in front of me. And if my Windows laptop would agree with me, I will try to find those names. But definitely, of 2 of the 8 senators, Manchin and Sinema, flat out don't support the $15 minimum wage, period.
Right. So I guess I don't understand if it's politics for them or if it's really policy. Like, do you know, like, can you put me in their minds? It's Manchin, Tester, Shaheen, Angus King, Sinema, Carper from Delaware, Coons from Delaware, and Maggie Hassan. I mean, it's interesting, 2 Democrats from Delaware.
Well,
off the top of my head, I'm going to chalk that up to corporate interests.
You beat me to that, Jordy, and thank you for saying that. You beat me to it. That said, you beat me to it. As it stands from Delaware, in my humble opinion, and we know that for a long time, when he was Senator Biden, he was often, one of the more derogatory nicknames for him was the senator from banking. I believe half of the Fortune 500 have some sort of corporate, dare I say, personhood, some sort of corporate office, location, mailing address, home, insert proper term here, in Delaware, because they
are incorporated in Delaware. I actually know about this.
It's extremely
you're right. It's not that they have a post office; they're legally incorporated in Delaware.
It's extremely lax incorporation laws. Right. So at least half the Fortune 500 does. So I suspect that was part of. I suspect that explains Coons and Carper, and their unabashed support for the corporations that are incorporated in their own state. Manchin and Sinema flat out don't support it. Tester's an interesting one. I can't fathom that. I would only my guess would be actually he, Shaheen and Hassan, which takes me up to 7. I guess you could sort of put Angus King in there. My guess would be that they are more on the. I haven't seen any quotes from them about this, and I don't. I am wary to start typing and Googling things because I don't want to lose track of what I'm doing. I tend to get very easily distracted. My guess would be that they are more in the regional minimum wage camp. And I find that this regional minimum wage is a bit of a shadowy argument. It's a bit of a misnomer. It's a bit of a distraction, I think some folks take it as a halfway point, like, well, we really do want to raise it, but boy, the cost of living in these metropolitan areas is so much more expensive, but we don't have that kind of cost of living here, so we don't need $15 here. We, we can do with 11, or we can do with even less. Actually, Senators Manchin and Sinema have talked about a $10 or $11 minimum wage. But here's the interesting thing that I would get to. And this is something, Jordy, you're an extremely learned and read individual, much more read than I, as I have quite literal problems reading. I wonder sometimes how I did as well as school as I did when I quite literally had problems reading. There's a fancy bit of math that you can do, and not just to Jordy, but to everyone out there. And I'm actually going to continue. I'll finish introducing myself and tell you how to watch the program and call into the program when I get through with this. But Jordy was kind enough. It's always awesome to have a caller. You know how much I love callers from anywhere. I don't care. So I jumped straight and answered the call. So with that said, let me get into this. There's a fancy bit of math that you can do. Division of the GDP, number of workers, and so on, and come up with an hourly rate of productivity per worker. What that comes out to right now is about $75. And it means that every full-time worker generates or is responsible for $75 of productivity. So at $7.25, right, that percentage is about 10% or less. It has not been that low since before the Great Depression, when Roosevelt instituted the minimum wage to begin with. It should be, and after the minimum wage was instituted, labor as a cost and as a percentage of that $75 was in the economic steadiness, security, the growth of the largest industrial power on earth, the growth of the largest middle class on earth, about 30% of that $75. Even if we raise the minimum wage now to $15, it will still only constitute about 18% of that $75 of productivity. So when you ask me, and again, Jordy, you're a very learned man, more than I, what is the intellectual, political, policy basis behind fighting the minimum wage? To me, it's very, very simple. It's simply about it goes back to the Powell memo, where Lewis Powell wrote a letter to the head of the Chamber of Commerce and warned him and instructed him that it was time for the rich to get off the sidelines and for big business and big corporations to get off the sidelines and start spending money in the political process, because the middle class had grown too large and was continuing to grow, and that their wealth was continuing to grow, and that following the passage of the Civil Rights and Voting Rights Act, now not only was there a large middle class, people of color were beginning to become part of that middle class. And we can't have that. And with wealth comes political power. And we can't have that. So the rich and the corporations needed to get off the sideline and crush this growing middle class. At the end of the day, in my humble opinion, that's at the end of the day what this is all about. It's about crushing that middle class and keeping us poor. During the Trump regime, for the first time since the Great Depression, since the Republican Great Depression, by the way, since the New Deal, for the first time during the years of the Trump regime, the percentage of Americans who qualify by the government's own data as middle class fell under 50%. It was at one point as high as 70%. The middle class will not even restore most of us up to that 70%, but it will pull, I'm running out of numbers in my head. My head's going, I want to say 12 million people out of poverty. So you have to ask yourself, and it was one of the main topics of the program today, was the difference between the quote unquote political parties. One party is actually trying to pay people, and the other profoundly and actively wants to keep you poor. Jordy, please. Sorry. Got in a roll.
Okay. No, I mean, a couple of things. You're correct about productivity. I mean, it's a pretty simple calculation. It's the value of everything in the economy divided by the number of workers. So that's, and it's a good rough measure. And, it's been going up and up and up and up. There are people far more learned than me. Part of it's automation and replacing human labor with robots, and especially manufacturing. Part of it's information technology. Part of it is, I always, when I've taught about this, I always found Costco a really great example compared to Sam's Club. They pay their workers really well and they get more productivity out of them. So, one of the things that I think gets lost by people like David Rowe, who's my state rep, who reuses these kind of talking points that have come out of the right-wing economists since the Powell memo, since that time, that they say this is going to kill business. And of course it won't. We have, that's a theory looking for data. There's huge amounts of studies about raising minimum wage in Seattle and Florida, all kinds of places that have done it. And, one of the things that businesses should welcome about it is, instead of them having to be no business wants to be at a competitive disadvantage. So a national minimum wage means that then businesses in different states aren't competing against each other. When each state is doing this incrementally, then that becomes a burden. I'm sensitive if I run a business in New Jersey, on the border of New Jersey, and there's a business across the Delaware River in Pennsylvania where the minimum wage is much lower. That's going to be tough for them to do it. So, you create an even playing field for all businesses with a national minimum wage. And this thing about the regional costs, that's interesting. If I'm having coffee and we're talking, deep policy, I can see an argument for that. But in this moment, this is what I don't get. And honestly, Jeff, I feel like it works against the Democratic label. But when you as a Democrat are saying, I'm going to put policy, nuance, and detail in front of this major win, because that's what I care about, you're out of touch with the larger political picture, which is, if people do not understand that the Democrats to a person, to an elected official, are on the side of working people, then we're not, then we can't make those arguments and we can't win that. I feel like there's a time, you get this passed, it just seems to be such classic, wonky liberals, right? Oh, this is not the best policy, therefore I can't vote for it. It doesn't matter right now. Get this thing passed. The implementation, right, is going to change things. I don't even know the specifics of the law. I'm sure it's scaled over time. It's people hear it and they think it's not going to go to $15 the day after it's passed.
No. The method. I guess I'll put it that way. I guess the method would be the right word. The way, the method, the system, again, I'll allow you all folks at home to implement the right word that you insert the proper word that you want to use here. That Senator Sanders and President Biden himself continue to advocate is not, as you said, to go from 725 to 15. It is to go, I believe it goes from 725 to, I'm really going to test myself now, because I'm working straight from my memory. And let me just say it rises in increments over 4 years. I want to say it goes from 725 to 9 to 11 to 13 to 15. I believe that's how it is implemented.
Mm-hmm.
So no, it does not. And you are correct, by the way. Again, you're correct a lot, Jordy. Let's be honest. Let's just be blunt. You're correct a lot. You know how
to get people to keep calling in.
But you are correct again in saying that there is no unbiased data, no unbiased science that shows any folks, wherever you're watching and listening, and my brothers and sisters globally at Hot101.net, especially everybody inside the United States, there is no data that is not being paid for by a right-wing think tank. There's no unbiased data that shows that the minimum wage either hurts business or costs jobs. I point you to, again, as Jordy mentioned, Seattle. And when we talk about how sometimes people will vote against even Jesus Christ if he ran as a Democrat, but democratic and progressive ideals are overwhelmingly popular, I point you to Florida, where Floridians voted to increase the state's minimum wage to $15 in this past general election in the fall of 2020 by, I believe, a 62% margin, 62%, I believe, in favor. And raising the minimum wage is popular across the nation
even with Republicans by nearly 70%. So when I think of bipartisanship, that's what I think about. When the populace believes in something.
Right. I mean, I'll just throw this out, and I got to go cook dinner, but it's always fun. But I feel like we all need to retrain ourselves to say like nonpartisan, because because bipartisan, that term is queued up to make some media pundits and gatekeepers think that if Republicans don't agree, then it's not truly nonpartisan. Whereas, as you just said, we know the numbers supporting increases in minimum wage are across party lines, all kinds of things. So they're literally nonpartisan. But, right. We've been trained for several generations that bipartisan is like this vaunted value. I've given up on it, right? Because, you can't, I think actually one of your guys last week said this, you can't be bipartisan with a zombie. like they don't have any actual like policy ideas here to kind of meet them halfway or whatever. So there's no point. It's nonpartisan, right? And if Republicans want to join a good nonpartisan idea, which is raising the minimum wage, they're welcome to. But we can't give them the veto power and let them put us in a Stockholm syndrome because they hold the power to decide whether or not it's acceptable. When right now in my county, the local Republicans, and this is true statewide, they label the League of Women Voters as a partisan entity. Because they don't like the position the league took, and I'm a member of the league on gerrymandering. No, the league is not. The league disagrees with you. That doesn't mean they're partisan, and that era is over in American politics, as far as I'm concerned. And we need to stop acting like it's not. Anyway, thanks for letting me ramble, and good luck with the show. And I got to go cook dinner.
Put it on in the background while you're cooking. You're always welcome here. Thank you for calling.
Yep. Bye.
Bye. Oh, and there's the lovely little chime. Hey, the chime's working. That's even better. Wow. Hey, wow. A call right off the bat. Wow. We're turning into a real program. Isn't that fantastic? Let me finish saying hello to everybody. And isn't that, it's almost appropriate because it's 5:27 Eastern time here in the Saucon Valley, part of the Lehigh Valley here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And this is the Kennedy Effect for the 7th of March, 2021. You know how much I effort and beg sometimes for phone calls. So we were happy to take a phone call straight out of the gate before we even had an opportunity to do all of our normal business that we usually do with you when we welcome you to the program. So let's do it now. No problem. No harm, no foul. Wherever, folks, you may be watching on Facebook, across the Facebook universe. There's now, it's 80, I believe we share to 80 plus locations across the Facebook universe. There are national pages, private groups, public groups, local, national, various places across the United States. We thank you. You can stay exactly where you are. Listen, enjoy, listen in the background like Jordy will be while you cook, while you have dinner with the family. Just stay where you are. Enjoy. You're welcome to stay right there. However, if you wish to join the chat, which is happening right now, live, you can by coming to the home group Facebook page for all things the Kennedy Effect, and that is right on your screen, That Other Side of Information. If you find our group, That Other Side of Information, scroll, you'll see the post where this show is currently airing. You can tap on it and you can comment and join us right there. We would love to hear your thoughts, your interactions, questions, comments, show suggestions, guest suggestions. The phone number is right there. You can be a part of the program right there. To our sisters and brothers and friends and family, to DJ Lex, DJ Earl, and of course, our dear, dear family, April Riddick. Welcome to Hot101.net, the great service that is Hot101.net. And actually some new talk programs will be joining Hot101.net that have actually been born out of this program, and we are extremely proud of that. But more about that in the coming weeks and months. It doesn't take, You don't just sit down, pop a, plug something into the outlet and a program starts. There's a bit of work that has to be done first, but we're building toward it, and we're really, really looking forward to it. If you don't know how to listen to Hot101.net, it is extremely simple, and there are so many different ways to make it so much easier for you. You can go to the main website page, and of course, that address is right in the name. It's Hot101.net. Hot101.net has apps to cover all of your devices. If you have an Apple device, you go to the Apple App Store. If you have an Android device, go to the Google Play Store. Or you can download the TuneIn Radio app and search for Hot101.net, and you can listen to us there. What about all the different ways and worlds and all that fun stuff where you can get to Hot 101 or get to the Kennedy Effect? And well, you can get to Hot101.net too, but get to the Kennedy Effect. Well, it's quite simple. We have so many different ways that you can reach the program. We continue to add them for whatever reason. We keep making it harder on ourselves. I guess we just kind of like it that way. You can tweet us, and I am trying to bring up the Twitter as we speak. The Windows laptop is really fighting with me today. In fact, it might be damaged at this point. I'm not sure the mouse pad is working anymore, or the touchpad, whatever you call that fun thing. I'm not sure that that's working anymore. That said, you can live tweet us. So I'm working on Twitter as we speak, trying to get the Twitter up. You can live tweet the program at that Kennedy Talk, or just go to Twitter and search That Other Side of Information, and you will find us. But our Twitter handle is at That Kennedy Talk. Where else are we? The email for the program is thatotherkennedy@gmail.com. If you're a little shy, if you don't want to be, in real time or passively, get to the program, you can always email the program. thatotherkennedy@gmail.com. We gave the Facebook group, the YouTube channel. We actually gained a YouTube subscriber this week. Wasn't that fun? It's the little things that make me happy. It's the little things that drive me and keep me going. But we did. We got a YouTube subscriber this week. I realize that Sunday evenings are not always the most conducive times for sitting down and watching a 3-hour-long event like this program. So if you miss any of the program, you can go to our YouTube channel, which is also called That Other Side of Information, and you can see the program there in its entirety. All of it recorded. It is YouTube has become our repository, our library, if you will, for all things, all programs. We might even start putting test videos up there. Actually, George and I did a test video last night, and it was a shambles. I gotta be honest. It was funny. It was entertaining, but it was pretty much a shambles. We were trying another video streaming service other than Zoom. That we thought we were doing that, and it just didn't work. It was funny. It was funny in sort of a Three Stooges, Marx Brothers kind of way. But maybe we'll put those there anyway. So yeah, YouTube, That Other Side of Information. Instagram, also That Other Side of Information. I forgot to do a TikTok promotional video this week. I'm now just realizing I forgot to do a TikTok this week. Not good. I literally just remembered that just now. Oh, goodness. Not good. But we are on TikTok, That Other Side of Information. And, of course, the Patreon. We forgot to do a graphic for Patreon, George. We invite you to go to patreon.com, That Other Side of Information, and see the subscriber goodies that you can find there for being a paid supporting subscriber to Patreon, including private videos, private Zoom calls, personal appearances, all that fun stuff. And again, I want to make it very, very clear, and I mean this I can't be more serious about this. Any funds that we are fortunate, blessed enough to get, to garner through the Patreon support, we will use for this program and nothing else. We're not going to stuff it in our pockets. We're not jetting off to Mexico or the Caribbean. We're simply going to turn that money back into the program. So that's, I think, very, very important for you to know. All right, that said, let's dive back into the program. And the phone number is on the screen, 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189. I just hear a weird, oh goodness, did someone ring? No, okay. Heard a beep there that I wasn't used to hearing. We did. There's a comment in the Facebook from my friend who I have not heard from a long time, Robert, and I hope, Robert, that you and the children are well. Robert's become a bit infamous, well known for posting some really wonderful videos of the kids out playing and stuff, just being kids. They're wonderful by their simplicity. They're just lovely to watch. We must acknowledge the historic nature of this child tax credit, the biggest entitlement development since Medicare. That is a vague statement at best. There is an increased child tax credit in the COVID rescue package. I'm not exactly sure where you're going with that. Usually when anybody drags out the entitlement word, it's generally derogatory. We pay through the payroll tax into Medicare, into Social Security, which does not make them entitlements, it makes them earned benefits. I don't think it's very difficult to know and see how many seniors that Social Security has kept from poverty. Prior to the Social Security program, when you retired or stopped working as an older person in this country, you just went broke. You just were poor, broke, and that was the end of you. And therefore, people generally worked until they died if they were physically capable of doing so. And what the union movement brought us, the pensions that unions brought us, and what Social Security brought to folks who were not unionized, was a retirement benefit. It allowed seniors who were no longer physically capable of working, it allowed them the dignity of retirement. It allowed them to keep their homes and, to be honest, just flat out not starve. Just not a bad thing. I mean, is that a bad deal? I don't think so. And by the way, no one lives high off the hog on Social Security, and Social Security has actually really not kept up with even the extremely low and limited inflation that we have in this country. Social Security has not kept up, especially since Social Security benefits began to be taxed under, you see the bingo card right in front of you, the Reagan administration. Social Security benefits were never taxed. It was tax-free money because it was like being double taxed. And they were originally tax-free dollars. And Mr. Reagan decided to start taxing you on those because the Social Security fund was beginning to not be able to keep up with the number of folks that were in it. And he raised, not only did he institute that tax, he raised it, I believe, 4 times. I'm working that from memory, so please feel free to correct me if I have gotten that incorrect. But I believe he raised that 4 times, or he might have done it 3 times, and then his successor, George H.W. Bush, raised it once as well. We all know, by the way, the very, very simple way to quote unquote save Social Security is to end the cap on the Social Security tax. Right now, folks who only pay Social Security tax up to, I want to say, about $137,000 of their income. So someone like me, I pay Social Security tax on 100% of all the income I bring in. But if you are Elon Musk, you pay on the first $137,000, then you don't pay anything after that. Sounds fair, right? Because after all, he's only worth over $200 billion. So that sounds fair, right? Folks who make under $137,000 pay Social Security tax on 100% of their income, whereas if you earn, quote unquote, earn $1 million, $2 million, $10 million, $20 million, $40 million, $44 million, like the commissioner of the NFL, you still only pay Social Security tax on the first $137,000. Sounds very fair. If we eliminated that cap entirely, Social Security would be perfectly solvent for at least the next century. Sounds like a pretty simple solution to me. Something that Senator Sanders, Senator Warren, Sherrod Brown from Ohio, and many Merkley from Washington, or no, Oregon. Sorry, Merkley's from Oregon, and many others have advocated for a very long time. And to be honest with you, if Republicans were not so owned by those wealthy people, it's exactly the kind of thing that they would support, because it would keep government money from having to be used to prop up Social Security, which is not happening, by the way. If anything, government has stolen money from Social Security. But anyway, that said, let me get into what I was originally, let me try this again. 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189 is the phone number, and the phone line is free and open. We only have one, and it is free and open right now. You can call us and speak about anything you wish. 267-227-9189. Since we had a caller straight out of the gate, let's get into all the things that we wanted to speak about this week. No guests, by the way. It's just you and I here for as long as we keep it going. You and I. That's it. You and me. Strap in. Let's get into kind of a look back at this last week. It was a busy legislative week in Washington. And to me, a week legislatively that more than probably any that I can remember since probably 2017, when the Trump Republican Paul Ryan, Mitch McConnell top 1% corporate tax cut, with $2 trillion corporate tax cut was passed. Probably this past week was a legislative period as much as any, if not more, since that particular time, that has shown us the clear, very, very clear difference between the Democratic Party and the Republican corporation. So what do I mean when I say that? Let's look at the pieces of legislation, the major pieces of legislation, he tried to say, that went through the House, and the big one that made it through the Senate this week. Let's start with the COVID rescue package. I think a lot of us have focused on the fact that there are $1,400 checks for roughly 85% of all Americans. I think that's the easy thing to focus on. It's certainly one of the things that Republicans have focused on because they have tended to focus on, oh, you're just handing out money to people. Just handing away free money to people. And it is giving money to people. It is. It's direct help to people. I'm one of the people that needs it. And even then, $1,400 is only going to get me 1 month of my mortgage with $400 left over. So it helps me for a month. And there's two big things that I would say to Republicans sitting in their chairs in office, and even self-identified Republicans, like our caller last week. I've got a lot of feedback, by the way, about the phone call that we took last week and the dialogue that we were able to have. A lot of feedback, all of it positive for both the caller himself and me. And I appreciate it. I don't need it, but a lot of great feedback for the gentleman, the young man who called. And I think he deserves it, by the way. And I hope he's listening again this week. But let's knock down these couple of big things. You're handing free money to people. Yes. Yes, we are. Yes, correct. We are. But let's look at what the other OECD countries, the other quote unquote first world, Western industrialized G20 nations are doing. You know who I'm talking about: the UK, France, Germany, even Russia. These quote unquote first world nations. The Scandinavian countries, the UK, France, Germany, all of them, China was doing it. All of them. If you are out of work due to this pandemic, well, since they all have centralized national healthcare systems, Canada's doing it actually, by the way. No one lost their healthcare. No one went broke because of medical debt. Nah, that only happens here. That only happens here in the United States. So the rescue plan actually opens up the Affordable Care Act exchanges and a special window for people to purchase health insurance. Doesn't grant anyone health insurance because we don't do that in this country. Everything has to be for profit, remember. It opens up the ACA exchanges to buy health insurance and provides additional monies in stipends and supports and subsidies to buy that insurance. What else does the rescue plan do? What does that $1,400 do? Again, remember that all of these other first world nations, if you're out of work because of the pandemic, you're being paid by your own government. You are given money every single month by your own government. The UK, even a conservative government. And in the UK, the Conservatives are loosely, not exactly like Republicans here. They're not as that far. They're not deep into the conspiracy fantasies that the Republicans are here. But they're conservative. They're corporate. They are privatize everything people. Even the conservative government in the UK are paying people directly 85% of their salary so that they don't go broke. They're paying businesses to stay closed in areas where it is unsafe for them to be open to try to prevent the spread of the disease and its variants. Are we doing anything like that here? Nope. It's sink or swim. It's libertarianism. Oh, you had to close your restaurant because having 600 people in your restaurant would cause half of those people to get a virus that could kill them. Oh, too bad for you. Too bad. When does this libertarianism here stop? So that's what the UK is doing. Canada is giving $2,000 a month. It took them 3 days to pass that legislation in Canada at the beginning of this pandemic. All the parties in a parliamentary system, all the parties, Prime Minister Trudeau's party, the Conservatives, and all the other parties in between, it took them 3 days from the moment somebody suggested we need to start paying people to stay home. 3 days, $2,000 a month. And support to businesses to stay closed to make sure they could keep their businesses. Have we done anything of the sort here? Nope. That $1,400 will mean since last March, a year ago, a whopping $4,000 in direct support to Americans from our government. The original $2,000 check, then a $600, and now a $14,000. $4,000. That's it. $4,000. If you are someone lucky enough to get all of that money, do some math. That's a whopping $333.34 a month. That's not bad. I'll take it. I've needed every damn penny of it. But compared to 85% of your salary in the UK, I believe 80% in Germany, 100% in some of the Scandinavian and lowland countries, or $2,000 a month in Canada. What countries do you think are going to be more economically stable coming out of this? Oh, the Fed has created $30+ trillion in new wealth since the onset of this pandemic. $22 trillion of which went directly into Wall Street to keep the big Wall Street banks afloat. Another $8 trillion has gone to buy bad corporate debt to keep the corporations afloat. The Fed took onto itself $8 trillion in corporate debt to keep the largest corporations in this country afloat. So $1,400. When, by the way, back in March, a Republican-controlled Senate supported $2,000 in checks, direct payments. They weren't whinging about means testing. They weren't whinging about rich people getting them. Steve Mnuchin was happy to hand out $500 billion to the largest corporations. They weren't crying about money then. But now Democrats are in charge. $1,400, we can't do that. Money to our own citizens to stay afloat, we can't do that. Deficits, spending, we can't do that. Republicans do not want to govern. They do not care about the overwhelming percentage of this population. If you're someone like me, and you know what, when I think about it, you could say to me, well, you're just angry. Yeah, damn right I'm angry. I worked at my company for 17 years. We were a small little company, about a dozen of us. And sometimes we fought like hell because that was our work family. We were a dysfunctional family at times, but we were a family. And it took a global pandemic to shut us down. And one time that we needed government, when Republicans controlled it, they were happy to watch us die. And all the big guys got taken care of. They're going to be fine. The Walmarts, the McDonald's, the Home Depots of the world are all going to be fine. The My Companies of the world, it's not called My Company, by the way. I'm just not giving you the company name. The small dress shop, the local pizzeria. Nope, too bad for you. What we're going to see coming out of this pandemic is a much, much deeper consolidation. A much deeper percentage of the overall economy controlled by these super mega corporations. And that's sad. Because the Republican corporation doesn't care. They want that consolidation because it turns into more campaign cash for them so they can get elected and the cycle continues. But what else is in the rescue plan? $350 billion for your state and local governments. Republicans didn't want you to have that. Even though the 8 largest taker states, meaning states that get more money from Washington than they send, are all deep red states. They're all broke. The biggest of which, of course, is Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. Kentucky gets $2.41 back for every dollar it sends to Washington, D.C. But yet he bitches about blue states taking money from Washington. No, we're paying for you. Pennsylvania is about even. New Jersey, New York, Maryland, Connecticut, Massachusetts, California, Washington, Oregon. These deep blue states, we're paying for the rest of the country. That's in the rescue bill. Republicans didn't want to bail out these local and state governments. They scream about opening schools. Republicans who hate public education, who want to privatize it, and who want to make education something that's only for people who can pay for it. Screaming from the proverbial mountaintops about reopening schools. Don't test or vaccinate kids or teachers, just get the schools back open. Voted against the money that would make that happen. This is not a governing political party. And it hasn't been for 40 years. It's a corporation. It is a party of gesture. It's a party of fear, of grievance. No plan, no platform, no leadership, no guidance, no leaders. It is a party of sedition. It is a corporation. And that is just from the COVID rescue bill. Oh, there's more in there. there's at least 40 billion, that's the number that I've heard, to finance vaccines. They voted against that too. When the Biden administration came in, they thought they were inheriting a plan for vaccine distribution. They didn't think it was a very good plan, but they thought there was one. What they found out is there was none. Right-wing hate media has been trying to tell you that look how many people continue to die now that Biden is in office, 500,000 plus deaths on his head. No, not even close to any plane of reality that you and I are living in. Because what the Biden administration found when it came in is that there was zero vaccination distribution plan. They have implemented one in 6 weeks. $40 billion in the COVID rescue package to help speed and greater proliferate those vaccines across the country. Republicans voted against that too. This is not a political party, folks. It's a corporation. (6:01 p.m. Eastern Time here in the United States, here in the Saucon Valley, part of the Lehigh Valley, in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania in these United States, on planet Earth, the only one we have. Third rock from the sun in the Terran solar system, and this is the Kennedy Effect for the 7th of March, 2021. Wherever you might be with us across the Facebook universe, we thank you for being there, live or watching the recording on whatever page, group, private group, public group, wherever you're watching. We are simply thrilled that you are here and that you continue to support the program. We hope you are able to take in the entirety of the program from beginning to end. We appreciate it very, very much. Don't ever think that we don't. This program is not here if you are not there. That said, if you would like to come join the chat, and there is a chat sort of kind of underway. It's a tad quiet, but there is a chat happening right now. Come to the home group Facebook page for the program. That other side of information. You hear me say it a lot during the course of a program. That other side of information. You will see the program happening in front of you right in the timeline of the group. You can tap on it, expand it, and enter your comments there. Comments, questions, show suggestions, topic suggestions, guest suggestions, since it seems like, you know, a man giving birth is easier than getting some guests on the program lately. Again, I know our timing isn't always very simple for guests, but, you know, this is when we do the program. I got to work during the week. That said, join the live chat. We would like to hear from you. You can join us there. Again, enter your questions, your comments. You can agree with me, disagree with me, yell, kick, scream, show suggestions, guest suggestions, whatever it might be. Come to that other side of information, the home group page for all things the Kennedy Effect, and you can enter your comments there. The Twitter page is open. I was able to get the touchpad to work at least enough that I can, you know, get the Twitter working. As a no shock to me, no one has tweeted, but you can. No one has tweeted since the day I think George and I created the Twitter account, or George created the Twitter account. Let's be honest, I didn't do it. George did it. Well, you can live tweet us right now. Actually, you can do it right now. When I say you can tweet us anytime, I mean, it's not like Twitter has hours. It's not like the doors close at a certain time. You can tweet me, tweet the program. Really, it's a Twitter account for the program, because if I'm not mistaken, I think George has access to it too. You can tweet us anytime you wish. But if you would like to get to me right now during the program, you can please do so. And you can, our Twitter handle is @ThatKennedyTalk, or just search for That Other Side of Information. If you missed any of the program today, go to the YouTube channel and look for That Other Side of Information. To our sisters and brothers and friends and family at Hot101.net, we thank you again. And as always, for welcoming us onto your phones, your tablets, your laptops, your desktops, your smart speakers, inside your cars, however you take in and listen to Hot101.net, we are honored to be with you as with every Sunday evening. If you do not know how to listen to Hot101.net, if you're not a regular listener to Hot101.net, let me explain it. It's super simple. The web address is in the name. It's Hot101.net for the home page for Hot101.net, and you can listen right there. And the page itself was overdone, not overdone. Overdone would have mean it had been cooked too much. Done over not too long ago, and it actually looks great, and it's very simple to use. Whatever kind of phone you have, Apple or Android, there is an app for you. Go to the Apple App Store and find the Hot101.net app there, or the Google Play Store for your Android device, or you can download the TuneIn Radio app. Go to the search bar and search for Hot101.net, and you can listen to us through the TuneIn Radio app anywhere around the globe. And the phone line, as Jordy was kind enough to display to you, the phone line is open. We are welcome, thrilled, happy, wanting to take your phone call at 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189. We use a free little piece of software based off, working out of Google Chrome called Google Voice. It allows us to take a whopping one phone call at a time. But right now, no one else is on the line, so we can take your call. Same as with your comments or your tweets. Call and speak to us. Tell us your thoughts. Agree, disagree, ask a question, send us a suggestion. But we want you to be part of the program. And you can do that. Again, give us a call. It's harder for me to respond and say welcome to the folks that are in the chat when I'm by myself with no guest. I do a lot of typing when I have a guest, and I try to welcome each and every individual that comes into the live chat. It's a little more difficult for me to do when I'm by myself with no guest, I have to be honest. So I'm trying to still do that and say hello to everyone that comes into the chat. If I miss you and I don't get to say hello to you when you come into the chat, please don't be angry. I see you, I know you're there, and I appreciate every single one of you. Don't think for a minute that I don't. I just, haven't had a chance to say anything. So again, the phone line is open, 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189. Another very, very, very significant piece of legislation. Well, now the COVID rescue package, I should back up a bit, is now law. It will be signed. If it has not been signed by President Biden already, it will be in short order. I believe it actually, no, you know what? No, it had to go back to the House. That's right, because there were differences in the Senate bill. The House passed it with, let's talk. Oh, my brain started kicking in, didn't it? Yeah, now my brain's remembering. So the House passed the COVID rescue package with, and as we were speaking to Jordy about, maybe that's why it left my brain, because I knew I wanted to talk minimum wage. He and I talked about it, and I think I checked it off my mental checklist, and I kind of forgot about it. But let's get into it. COVID relief package passed out of the House with a $15 minimum wage included in it. That piece of the legislation did not make it through the Senate. So this bill is now going to go back to the House rather than a conference committee, which would normally happen if you remember your civics. Oh, that's right. We don't teach civics anymore. Well, if you're old like me and you remember your civics, normally a conference committee would be formed with members of both the Senate and the House, and they would sit down and hammer out the differences between the versions of the legislation, agree on it, and that version would go back then to both chambers and be voted on and passed and then sent to the president. What appears to be happening with this particular piece of legislation is that there are no conference committee. It's going straight back to the House where they will vote on the version that was passed by the Senate. Now, I must admit to you that I do not know if that is being done simply as a way to expedite this piece of legislation, or if it has something to do in the functioning of the two chambers, just to say that, you know, there was more in the House bill than the Senate bill, so the House they don't need to form a conference because the House would then have to sign off on a bill that actually had less stuff in it. I got to be honest with you, I don't know that, and someone is welcome to call us and tell me. Normally speaking, they would form a conference committee, hammer that all out, and then that same version, whatever came out of the conference, would go back to both chambers. But that said, so this is going to go back to the House, where it will in all likelihood pass, I would assume. I would expect, even without having a minimum wage in it, that no Republican will vote for it. I would expect, believe it or not, some Democratic defections because there is no minimum wage attached to it. But again, Democrats only have a 4 or 5 vote margin in the House, so there cannot be too many Democratic defections or it won't get through. But I don't think at the end of the day that will happen. The Speaker Pelosi is an exceptionally skilled politician. By the way, folks, and I know I'll get some grief from my very progressive friends for this, she's a much more progressive individual than she gets credit for. Much more. She's not everywhere that I wish she was on every issue, but she's much more progressive than people give her credit for. And she is a very, very skilled politician. She doesn't let a vote take place if she doesn't know what's going to happen. So I would expect there would be a 1, 2, maybe even 3 Democratic defections because they want that minimum wage desperately. I want that minimum wage. But it's not going to be there. And I suspect it'll pass the House and go to President Biden straight literally within minutes. The physical paper bill will be driven over to him nearly immediately for his signature. But let's talk about the minimum wage a bit. A very interesting hearing took place. We talked about it last week. Did we talk about it last week? I think we did talk about it last week. It was either, but I believe it happened last week. I think the hearing actually took place last week. I don't believe it took place this week. I think it happened last week. Weeks are running together, to be honest. And I think George and I are going to have to get different background noise. This background noise is much more active, and I think it's dragging my brain around to different places. There's voices in it and stuff, and I think it's the crazy voices in my head. That could be too. Never underestimate the voices in my head. So Senator Sanders held hearings. I believe I remember discussing this with you last week. And let's think about what came out of those hearings. Now, to me, well, let's look at it this way. You had three big CEOs there. Rather than calling every CEO of every Fortune 500 company, which I think Senator Sanders could have done easily, he took a representative group. I believe he only had the three in there. The CEOs of McDonald's, Walmart, and Costco. And we did talk about this last week. I'm pretty darn sure. So, and we're going to drag this discussion into the universal basic income, because if you've been on the Facebook page, you'll see we've posted a couple articles this week about the universal basic income, and some long-term studies have been done about the universal basic income. And guess what? All the results are really, really, really good. But that's it. You had the CEO of Costco say that he was going to raise the floor, the lowest paid worker in the mega billion-dollar corporation that we know as Costco. I shop there myself when I have money. I don't really have any, so I don't go there much, but when I do, to $16.75 an hour with health insurance. And during the course of this hearing, you had the CEOs of Walmart and McDonald's say that they would be raising their floor pay. And why do I say floor? The entry level, the bottom, the absolute bottom pay, the floor, to 15. Now, why did they say they would do this? I'm setting Costco aside because they've always paid their people more. And they allow their people to unionize. And they offer health benefits, I believe, if not straight away from the day you walk in the door, very, very quickly. Notoriously, McDonald's and Walmart don't even offer any of that, and they are militantly anti-union. And by the way, we'll talk when we talk about universal. Well, let me get into that. I'll get into Amazon in a minute. It's my belief that even as good of a thing as this is, and it is, that these corporations have finally decided to raise that floor, that floor pay, that we, gosh, how do I phrase this? I think they're doing the right thing for the very wrong reason, is my take. That's how I take it. I believe that these corporations are doing the right thing for the wrong reasons. I believe that they are doing such to try to get the government off their back and try to convince enough lawmakers to say, look, we don't need to raise the minimum wage. It's happening by itself. And there's some credence to that. There's some truth to that market forces are pushing wages up because there's an increasing number of people who simply will not work for $7.25. So I don't think they're entirely wrong. But I also think, and what I think the greater point is that these corporations are pushing wages up in an attempt to keep the government from doing it for them. is remember, at the end of the day, no matter how much damage, no matter how much dismantling, tearing down, tearing apart of government has taken place by Republicans in the Reagan era, the deregulation, the defunding of departments and agencies, the incentives for people to retire and get out and never replacing them, the de-emphasis of science and data and research and studies. With all of that, even with all of that, the top 1% and the largest corporations still know, they still grasp, they still understand that it is government that is the one overarching authority that can regulate them. And what are regulations? They are protections. Government is still the one overarching and perhaps the only entity that can protect us, we the people, from them. At the end of the day, these top 1%ers, these 0.01 top percenters, these Fortune 500s, these multi-billion, mega multi-billion, and if you're Apple, these trillion-dollar corporations still understand that at the end of all things, it is still government that protects us from them. So I believe that some of these corporations who have fought, vehemently fought, vigorously fought, have spent millions, if not tens of millions, on lobbyists to keep the minimum wage from going up. They are now raising their wages under their own volition in an attempt to keep government from doing it to them. We're doing it for them. That's my take. What's yours? You tell me what your take is. We want to know. 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189. And think about this now. At $7.25 an hour, working 40 hours, thank you, unions, that's under your gross take-home pay, your pre-tax take-home pay is still under, I should probably do that math. Watch him pull out the calculator. He's a pretty smart guy because I can't do that kind of math in my head. So 7.25 times 40 hours. It's $290 a week. Gross, pre-tax, no withholding. Let's multiply that by 50 weeks. Let's assume for this, take holidays in there. Assume that you might actually even get some time off or you're sick or whatever. Let's do 50 of the 52 weeks. Yeah, you know what? Screw that. Let's do all 52 weeks times 52 weeks is just over $15,000. $15,080. That's under the poverty rate. It's still under the federal poverty rate. Let's do $15. $15 times 40 hours takes you all the way to $600. At the early onset of the pandemic and the federal aid, why was it that Democrats insisted that we all get that federal unemployment benefits be bumped by an additional $600? Again, something that Senator Sanders and Senator Warren, Elizabeth Warren, fought for vigorously. Why did they pick that number? Because there it is right there. $15 an hour times 40 hours, $600. That extra $600 for me kept me afloat. It kept me afloat. Let's multiply that times 52 weeks, shall we? $31,200. You're nearly doubling. You're over doubling. Sorry. Yeah. Over doubling people's gross pay. So if you're a working person now, you're making less than $15. Let's say you're making the federal minimum at $7.25. Let's say you're making the restaurant workers minimum of $2.12. Let's also say that you continue to vote Republican. Do you not deserve $15 an hour? Do you feel you aren't worth 15? Do you prefer to make $15,080 a year gross instead of $31,200? Because when you continue to vote Republican, that's what you're voting for. The Republican Corporation has decided you're not worth $15. Senators Manchin and Sinema think you might be worth 11 at the most. I think they're powerfully and painfully incorrect. But what I would say is they still think you're worth more than $7.25. But meanwhile, the QOP, formerly known as the GOP, not only do they think you're only worth $7.25, there's a significant percentage of them currently in Congress, both the Senate and the House, Congress, that believe there should be no minimum wage whatsoever. Republicans have fought the minimum wage since its inception as a part of the New Deal. And what did the New Deal save us from? A Republican Great Depression. What is the COVID rescue package going to help save us from? A second Republican Great Depression. And at the end of the day, why is it that they don't want you to have these things? For me, several reasons. Just like President Obama and President Clinton before him, they don't want a Democratic president to win. They don't want any legislative successes. None. Nothing that Democrats can run on. No record. No legislative victories. Because after all, when you have no record of your own, when you have no platform of your own, when you have no legislative agenda of your own, what do? You tend to piss all over the other guys. When you have no agenda, when there's nothing that you're pushing for, What do you do with all of your time? You try to stop the other guy. That's what we're seeing. That's what we saw with the COVID rescue package. It's what we will see with HR 1. It's what we will see with the George Floyd Act. It's what we will see with practically everything that comes from Democratic majorities in either house, except probably tax or defense spending. Everybody loves defense spending. And this is what brings us back to what we talk about when we talk about this Republican corporation. No plan. No leadership. No guidance. No platform. No ideas, no future. No leaders. This is what we're talking about. 6:31 Eastern Time. This is the Kennedy Effect for the 7th of March, 2021. Last week we were saying, wow, it's the 28th of February already. We're 2 months in. Well, it just sounds like such a drastic difference in 7 days to go from the 28th of February to March 7th. What a big difference. What a huge difference. It's amazing. It really is. What a big difference. It's really strange. This year is just flying by. It truly is. Wherever you are on Facebook, thank you for being there. Sit back, enjoy the program. Happy to stay exactly where you are and watch. If you're watching on a recording on the timeline of whatever group, page, person, whatever that you're in, thanks for being there. However, if you would like to join us live, come on over to the home group Facebook page, That Other Side of Information. Enter your comments, questions, suggestions, yell, scream, agree, disagree, whatever you got. Bring it over to the home group Facebook page, That Other Side of Information, and join the live chat. In fact, our dear friend and loyal watcher, and he even called once, Mark, says that there's a difference between exploitation and dignified working. You are 100% correct, my friend. Even if I can't get the words out of my mouth, you are correct. There is a big difference between dignified work. Americans, as an overwhelming percentage, in the extreme upper 90s, want to work. We're happy to work. There is an inherent dignity and self-worth and pride that comes from work, but we deserve a fair and living wage for it. It's all we're asking for. Hot101.net family, you know how to listen to us. The main website page, Hot101.net, the Apple App Store, the Google Play Store for Android. You will find the apps there for Hot101.net and the TuneIn radio app. Go to the search bar, type in Hot101.net, and you will find us there on the TuneIn radio app. If you have missed any of the program, please go to YouTube. After we finish or anytime during the week, you can catch the program in its entirety. YouTube.com/That Other Side of Information. Tweet the program at That Kennedy Talk. Twitter.com, That Other Side of Information. Twitter handle is at That Kennedy Talk. Instagram is That Other Side of Information. TikTok. Yep, we went there. Is That Other Side of Information. And of course, please check us out at patreon.com, Patreon, patreon.com, and look for That Other Side of Information, where you can become a subscriber and help support the program and check out the free goodies we have over at patreon.com. Hot101net.com. So many ways to take in this program. The phone line is open, 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189. Your phone calls are not only welcome, they are overwhelmingly encouraged. 267-227-9189. Tell us what you believe. What do you think? What are your thoughts, your comments, your suggestions? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? What makes you frustrated about what you watched out of Washington this week? By the way, there were more January 6th insurrection hearings this week. We didn't even get to that. I didn't even put it in the header for the program. Did you watch them? Did you see FBI Director Christopher Wray tell the Republicans on the committee, no, there were no fake Trump supporters. There were no Antifa people there dressed as Trump supporters. They were all Trump supporters. Did you see him tell the Republicans on the committee it was sedition? They were federal crimes. All but one of the FBI field offices is involved in the investigation. Did you see the news reporting that Senator Hawley's texts, it's a hard one to say, his text messages are being investigated and reviewed by the FBI to see how deep of a role he had in the 6th January seditious, treasonous attack on the Capitol building? Did you watch any of that? Tell us what you think of that. I happen to believe that was one of the great underreported stories of the week. Every week, there is a story that is very, very underreported. A story of genuine significance that goes under the radar, so to speak, that goes blind, that people don't pick up on, either because there are other things that are being reported or other stories that kind of suck the life out of the room. This for me might just be the story that is that one that is still flying really deeply, deeply below the radar. And that is, as I just laid out, but let me lay it out again. Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri, one of the initiators, one of the co-conspirators. Sure, you all saw the now infamous photo, if not, I think there might be video of it as well, walking into the Capitol building on the 6th of January with his fist up in the air, welcoming, supporting the Q seditionists who were already at the Capitol that day. Apparently, there's a series of text messages between he and these seditionists that are being looked at by the FBI. And yeah, I mean, and that's one of the great underreported stories of the week, in my opinion. A sitting U.S. senator is being investigated for sedition or for his co-conspiratorship of the 6th January attacks. I think it's an immense story. So, just tremendous, really tremendous. I very much look forward to see what they find. Seems to me that that's not a hard one. If they're trying to find out if he had anything to do with it, all they need to do is look what he did on the floor that day. And it kind of gives away itself. If they want to know if he did anything to encourage the attack on the Capitol, watch what he and Ted Cruz did on the floor that day. Pretty damn simple. Genuine sedition. Anyway, there is that. Let's get into HR 1. 267-227-9189 is the phone number, and the line is open. 267-227-9189. 227-227-9189 is the phone number. Something else came out of the House this week, and that is HR 1, the For the People Act. It is among the most sweeping campaign finance, ethics, and anti-voter suppression pieces of legislation perhaps ever authored since the original Voting Rights Act of 1965, he believes. He's using his brain again. It might be the most significant piece of voting legislation since the original Voting Rights Act. HR 1 will allow for, among other things, the act obviously does a great many things. But here's some of the highlights. And again, everything that I'm about to list out to you, and they will pop into my head as I remember them. Every single thing that I'm going to list out to you are things that Democrats voted for and Republicans didn't. So when we look for the differences, the very, very obvious differences between the two, if this doesn't tell you, I don't know what does, or what would, or what will. Because the things I'm going to lay out to you are, again, supported, being fought for actively by Democrats, and fought actively, working to fight by Republicans. So let's think about this. One party wants you to vote. A right guaranteed 2 places in the Constitution and in the motor voter bill. And the Republican corporation trying to do everything they can to limit voting to wealthy white men. And some women, if they have enough money. HR 1 instructs 501c4, C3 and C4, I believe, the dark money groups, American Heritage Foundation, Americans for Tax Fairness, the Cato Institute, these Koch network paid for quote unquote think tanks. Currently, they do not have to tell anyone least of all the government, where they get their money. So if the Mercers should happen to decide to dump $20 million into the Cato Institute is under no obligation to tell you that they have done that. Even if we wanted to use a terribly ridiculous example, like if the Ku Klux Klan decided to dump $1 million into the American Heritage Foundation, or the Heritage Foundation. I think they used to be the American Heritage Foundation. Now it's just the Heritage Foundation. I got that one wrong. I definitely got that one wrong. Even if the Ku Klux Klan wanted to dump $1 million into the Heritage Foundation, the Heritage Foundation is under no obligation to tell you about it. HR 1 would change that. They would now have to tell you where their money comes from. Because after all, if they're going to spend that money in the political process, why should we not know who is funding them? And you might think to yourself, well, why does that matter? Well, when a piece of legislation comes up, you've seen, actually, we saw this week. Here's another sort of underreported story this week. Former Representative Deb Haaland was nominated by the Biden administration to be the Interior Secretary. She is a indigenous Native American woman. She would be the first Native American to serve in a cabinet. She is and has been properly, openly anti-fossil fuels because so many of the fossil fuel companies have wanted to build their pipelines over native lands, treaty lands, sometimes sacred lands. The Trump regime actually gave away a native indigenous burial ground for a copper mining company. So that said, there's a lot of special interests. I'm trying to look something up for you guys, make sure I'm right. There's a lot of special interests in these groups like the Heritage Foundation, among others, that corporations will funnel money through to push agendas that they support. Hell, tobacco companies still spend money through these groups. I think, as much as we've all determined and know for a fact that smoking kills people, the tobacco industry is still out there, and they still will spend lots of money through these front groups to say, that it doesn't and that it's safe and all this fun stuff. And they have moved large part of those operations overseas, by the way, just to get the rest of the world to think that smoking is okay, primarily Africa. But with that said, so if these groups were to receive millions and millions of dollars from the fossil fuel industry to do advertising and lobbying against Deb Haaland, currently those groups do not have to tell anyone, including the senators they are lobbying, because after all, Ms. Holland would have to be confirmed by the Senate. They don't have to tell any of these senators where that money came from. H.R. 1 would change that. They would now have to report that, and those reports would be public knowledge. So if the Heritage Foundation sends a team of lobbyists to the appropriate committee that oversees the Department of the Interior, and to be honest, I'm not sure. I think it would be the Energy Committee, among others. And the Heritage Foundation spends, let's put it this way, the American Petroleum Institute gives the Heritage Foundation $20 million to spend on its lobbying against Deb Haaland because they think she's too anti-fossil fuel. H.R. 1 would make that donation and where it came from public. I'm a senator. I can then connect those dots. And not only that, but so can the public. Now, granted, so many of us don't pay attention to such things, but how much of the public would pay attention or would be so easily able to connect the same dots to say, oh, all right, so former Rep. Haaland is very anti-fossil fuel. She wants to institute a green economy and a green power grid. But the fossil fuel industry doesn't like her, so they paid the Heritage Foundation this big chunk of change to send these people to Capitol Hill to lobby senators to make sure she doesn't get appointed. We can make that connection in our heads. We can't do that without the right information. And we've never had that information because 501c3 and C4 advocacy groups, quote unquote, dark money groups, have never had to tell us where their money comes from. Well, H.R. 1 would change that. So what else? What else would H.R. 1 do? H.R. 1 would pre-register 16 and 17-year-olds to vote. It would allow them to do that, so that when they turned 18, they would automatically be able to vote. Currently, that does not happen. It would prevent states from doing what is happening in Georgia right now. Well, what's happening in Georgia? Georgia just voted for 2 Democratic senators. They did. True, they did. But what is happening there now is that the overwhelmingly Georgia Republican legislature has passed a piece of legislation that would take the Sunday souls to the polls down to 1 Sunday. It would severely restrict mail-in voting. You would now need to produce a reason and a photo ID to obtain a mail-in ballot. If you're standing in line to vote at your polling place and in largely neighborhoods and districts and precincts of color, you get 1 voting machine. It doesn't matter if you have 10 people there or 250,000, you get 1 voting machine. And if you have to stand in line for 11 hours, too bad for you. And it makes it quite literally illegal for anyone to bring you food and water. They're trying to make it that piece of legislation, and by the way, Governor Brian Kemp, the one who stole an election from Stacey Abrams, has said he will sign this legislation. One of the acceptable forms of ID to be able to continue to vote in Georgia would be your driver's license. How many 70, 80, and 90-year-olds do you know that still drive? What Georgia is trying to do is reduce the voting base to middle-aged white people. They are trying to disallow students. Oh, why is that? Students and young people, they tend to vote more Democratic. They're trying to eliminate people of color, Black, Hispanic, Asian. Why are they doing that? They tend to vote Democratic. And by ending Sunday voting, they wipe out most of the Black churches who tend to vote as a church community. Why make a driver's license necessary? More and more older folks don't drive. They're trying to reduce the voting base back to a pre-Civil War white people. And if they could do it, they would make it only white men. H.R. 1 makes all of that illegal because federal law usurps state law. H.R. 1 also requires hand-marked paper ballots everywhere in the United States. Everywhere. I find this particular point exciting and hilarious because the county administration here in Northampton that wasted over $8 million on new voting machines would have to replace them because they don't meet the standards of H.R. 1. Oh, and it's a Democratic administration, quote unquote. And we warned them. We went to the meetings. We spoke to them. We showed them the evidence. Nope, we'll buy the most expensive, most hackable machine we can possibly buy. The most troublesome, most expensive to maintain, most expensive to program, most insecure. We'll have those. We don't need to worry about H.R. 1. It'll never become law. If H.R. 1 becomes law now, all that money, actually given the maintenance and stuff, given the maintenance and things and the troubles that we had in the 2019 primary, I believe those machines, the total cost of the machines have eclipsed $10 million now. But that's out of my memory. I'm taking that out of my memory, so I could be incorrect about that. And all of that money will have been wasted when H.R. 1 becomes law. Hand-marked paper ballots nationwide. The way it should be. Perfectly accountable. Perfectly accountable. And reviewable and recountable. Hand-marked paper ballots, as it should be. H.R. 1 also would end gerrymandering. It would take out of the hands of state legislatures, both Democratic and Republican controlled. would take out of the hands of state legislatures across this nation the ability to draw districts, voting districts, legislative districts, congressional districts. It would now have to be done by neutral or at least party equal independent commissions. Now, for us here in Pennsylvania, when continually, cycle after cycle after cycle, more people vote for Democratic candidates than Republican corporate candidates, but yet Republicans control both houses of the Pennsylvania legislature time after time after time. And in 2020 actually increased that lead. When we look at the kind of the same but a different, look at Wisconsin. Wisconsin has an overwhelmingly Republican legislature, even though Democrats routinely get more votes, because Wisconsin is dreadfully and incredibly gerrymandered. So is Texas. All the southern states, all of the Confederacy is gerrymandered. Pennsylvania is horribly gerrymandered. It took the courts to fix the congressional districts, which used to be overwhelmingly Republican. After the courts drew them, they became even. And even though, by the way, our state constitution instructs on how those districts are supposed to be drawn, HR 1 fixes that. 7:01 p.m. here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. This is Jeff Kennedy with you again on the 7th of March. And this is the Kennedy effect. We had a call straight out of the gate, straight from like 5:05. We had a call. We haven't had one since. I have no idea why. Come on, folks. You're good with this. You can handle this. The phone line is open. 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189. Wherever you might be on Facebook, hang out there. We're glad you're there. That Other Side of Information is the home group page. That's where we will see you in the room, see your comments, questions, yell, scream, all that fun stuff if you have any. Tweet the program at That Kennedy Talk. Hot101.net, the main website page. There is an app for Apple at the Apple App Store, at the Google Play Store for Android, and for all devices through the TuneIn radio app. If you missed any of the program, you can go to YouTube, to our YouTube channel, That Other Side of Information, where you can catch any program that has become our library and repository of all of our episodes. We hope you will go there and check it out. We are on Twitter. We are at Instagram, That Other Side of Information, TikTok, That Other Side of Information, and our Patreon account, That Other Side of Information, where you can also become a paid subscriber. There are goodies there if you become one, stuff for you to get that other folks will not if you become a paid subscriber. On all of these platforms, all of them, Facebook, alike, join, become a member of the page, or a follower of the page, whatever it would be, a member of the page, I think it is. On, let me look now, Twitter, give us a follow. YouTube, become a subscriber. That doesn't cost you anything. All it does is alert you when there are new videos posted. Instagram is a follow, I believe it is. TikTok is a follow, or you can just like the, small announcements and rants that I do there. And Patreon, of course, is a paid subscription. But look, any of these platforms, give us a like, give us a follow, become part of the family. We can't do this without you. Without you out there, there is no us here. And George, April, and I, along with our friends at Hot101.net and some friends across Facebook, and certainly me, we are deeply, deeply committed to this program, and very committed to this program. And I think even begrudgingly, even George's wife, Lynn, is committed to this program. I think she is. Not always as much as we are, for sure, but she's committed. She's committed to the program. Again, not the same hours that we are, but deep down her heart, she wants us to succeed. She's committed to the program. We're all deeply committed to the program. We want to succeed. We want to grow. We want to bring you the absolute best program we possibly can. We implore you and ask you on any of the program platforms, whatever happens to be your weapon of choice, so to speak, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Patreon, TikTok, give us a like, give us a follow, become part of that other side of information, the Kennedy Effect family. Let's grow this. Let's support progressive media. Let's support news, facts, information, science, data. Let's get it out there. And in fact, I have to say, even as I say those words, I kind of, I'm almost somewhat uncomfortable even saying that, because, I think we've been quite fair on this program, taking calls from Republicans. We've had a Republican guest, and we do try to look at things from all the sides that we possibly can. You hear me say every single week that my party is not perfect. We have a lot of work to do to improve the Democratic Party. There's a lot of work to do to return the Democratic Party to its New Deal. Franklin Roosevelt, John Kennedy, LBJ, Great Society, Moonshot, Thomas Jefferson, progressive tax system roots. But that work is being done. I still believe in my heart, by the way, that there are more progressives in the rank and file of the party than there are the corporate wing. It just so happens that the corporate ring, yeah, kind of, yeah, ring, yeah, that the corporate wing is still running and at the top echelons of the party. But it's the rank and file like me and like us that actually, I think, make up the majority of its membership. So we're working on it. Let me get back to HR1, and we might actually wrap up the program a lot sooner than later, because even the comments in the chat have quieted down. There's like no one, I don't think, in the chat currently. But here's the bottom line about HR1. When we look at what's in it, the ethics, and I haven't even mentioned some of the ethics, the ethics planks that are in there. I actually don't even know a lot of the ethics planks that are in there. I know there's some greater reporting on financial contributions to candidates and so on, and gifts, gift bans, I believe, are in there. But when we look at the transparency that would come to these dark money groups, when we look at the support for mail-in voting, the support for absentee voting, the pre-registration of folks for our youth, the acceptance of student voters, the protections, and to make sure that neighborhoods of color have enough voting machines, the security, oh yes, I said the security, and the accountability of hand-marked paper ballots. All of these things, again, just like the COVID rescue package, all of these things have significant, have measurable support across the country when you poll people. Obviously, and I freely admit, there is more polling support with Democrats and independents than there are with Republicans. But even in the Republican Party, corporation, even with self-identified Republicans, these measures have support. It's only the office holders and the paid corporate structure that don't want to see these things pass. So think about this. Again, what's the main theme of the program today? The easy and obvious differences between these two systems, the Democratic Party and the Republican corporation. This is what Democrats have put forth: strengthening, repairing, fixing, overcoming what the Supreme Court did to deconstruct the Civil Rights Act, mail-in ballots, pre-registration, protecting senior voters, protecting voters of color, accountability, security, making it easier to vote, giving more people the legal and secure, expanding the right to vote. Republicans, no, we don't believe in any of that. We want to restrict the right to vote. Republicans have introduced over 250 pieces of legislation in 43 different states to restrict voting, period. Republicans at every level of government are upset that more people, in particular, Black, Latinx, Indigenous, and Asian voters, and first-time voters, by the way, again, the young, cast more ballots for President Biden than for Trump. Now they are working hard to make sure that that doesn't happen again in 2022 and beyond. And I would say to you, here in Pennsylvania, at least, they are fighting to make sure that it doesn't happen here in 2021, where we have a myriad of elections: school board, county commissioners, county executives, township councils, and a Supreme Court justice. There are 43 states that have legislative proposals that would restrict voting access, either by limiting ballot drop boxes, implementing stricter ID laws, making it harder to vote by mail, and limit access to early voting. Among those states, Arizona, right here in Pennsylvania, and Georgia. Chief among them, those three states, but not only those three states. I'm sure many of you heard the audio of the, what I would assume is a Zoom call, some type of video conference call, from the Supreme Court this week, where a Republican lawyer, a lawyer representing the Republican Corporation of Arizona, told Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett, the newest Trump appointee, when she asked this particular lawyer what standing, not anyone can weigh in on a case that the Supreme Court is arguing. If the Supreme Court was hearing a case about school funding, a fossil fuel company can't just weigh in out of nowhere. An animal rights group can't just weigh in out of nowhere. You have to have something called standing. You must be relevant to the case. Justice Barrett asked this particular Republican lawyer representing the Arizona Republican Party what standing he had in this case. And his answer was oddly honest. In a rare, it may have even snowed in Arizona. In a rare moment of honesty, this lawyer told Justice Barrett, we are fighting and introducing new measures in Arizona because we believe Democrats have an electoral advantage and we're trying to take it away from them. I think one of the very first questions I may have asked when this program started deserves a reissuance. In other words, let me ask you again. I asked you a question. I'm almost certain that I may have asked this going back to the very first program. The very first program. And if I didn't, I'm asking now, and it's a question that I ask a lot. And I will ask you, and I want you to think about it. Why does a party, in this case a corporation, a Republican corporation, a group whose stated philosophy says that they believe in small government, that they want government out of your business, that they want deregulation, the deconstruction, I would even say, of government, that they want to cut spending. They've never done that, by the way. All of these different things, really, when you think about it, they want all these things. These are things that are supposedly what they believe. Right? Conservative, the root word being conserve. No money, don't raise taxes, cut government, cut regulation, all this stuff. But yet they're so desperate. And there's no amount of money that they are willing to spend. No lengths that they are willing to go to control government. And of course, when they're in control of government, all they do are use the levers of power of government to make the rich richer and make themselves rich. They do everything against what they supposedly stand for. It seems to me if they hated government so much, they wouldn't be so damn desperate to control it. There's nothing conservative about that. I've always found that terribly interesting. No one ever seems to have an answer for me, which I also find very interesting. No one ever seems to have an answer for me. Why is that? Even Republicans can't answer that one for me. The self-identified or the ones elected, they can't answer that for me. Something else Democrats did this week, because I have a feeling we might end at 7:30. I don't think I can keep going to 8. This is a monologue here. I didn't want it to be a monologue. I never want this program to be a monologue. And yet here we are. 267-227-9189 is the phone number. 267-227-9189. 867 227 9189. The George Floyd Policing Act also passed the Democratic House this week on its way to the Senate. It makes it easier. It creates a database for police officers who have been charged with brutality so that they cannot simply bounce from place to place and get new jobs. Among other things, it I don't want to say it cracks down on police unions. I think that would be a very incorrect characterization, but it does make their hiding of officers who have been involved in violent acts more difficult. It puts some sunlight there. It enhances civilian review boards, and it's a reimagining of police nationwide. And again, shocker, if you listen to this program, Republicans are against it. There are so many hypocrisies with Republicans, and not the least of which is in this bill. Republicans are vehemently anti-union. They hate unions. They want unions destroyed. In the Reagan era, we have seen private sector union membership, a percentage of the labor force that is unionized, drop from just under 38%. I believe it was 37.4, if I'm not mistaken. But again, drawing these numbers out of me brain, folks, you're welcome to have a DuckDuckGo search and have a look at it, and then tell me if I'm wrong. Please tell me if I'm wrong. And I mean that sincerely. If I've got it wrong, tell me. Believe it's 37.4, so just under 38% percentage of the private sector unionized in this country at its height, down to under 6%. Just in 40 years. 40 years of Reaganism, the 40 years of the Reagan era, the 40 years of the destruction, the wanton and willful, intentional destruction of the New Deal, turning the United States on its head. But when it comes to police unions, I think you know where I'm going. When it comes to police unions, there's just not enough hoops that Republicans can jump through on behalf of police unions. Interesting. Because police unions are among the only unions that tend to vote Republican. And you don't suppose, by the way, sarcasm, that Republicans would want to drive a wedge inside the union movement? No? Maybe? This is not a political party, folks. It's not. It's divide and conquer. Whites against blacks, blacks against Hispanics, rich against poor, men against women, the married against the single, the older against the younger, the college degreed against the non-college degreed, the industrial against the white collar, urban versus suburban versus rural, red state versus blue state, north versus south, America versus everyone. All the while, through all the distractions, through all of the bitterness and the divide, through all of the hate and the fear the black, fear the Mexican coming across the border to take your job, fear the union taking your money for dues, fear the small business who just wants a handout, fear government who wants to do crazy things like pave streets and provide schools. Fear the government who's going to oppress your freedom. Except that we'll tell women when they can and cannot have medical procedures. And we'll tell you when you can and cannot have health care. And we'll tell you when you can and cannot and how you can and cannot get an education. And what you can and cannot learn if we should think you deserve one. But we'll stay out of your life. Again, folks, my party is not perfect. It's not even close. But we're the only ones trying. We are the only ones trying. A discussion that Jordy and I didn't have time to get into because he was off to dinner, and God bless him. Sunday is still generally family dinner time. We had a discussion on a conference call before I came up to do show prep, and I still ran into the beginning of the program doing show prep. That sharing bit on Facebook takes forever. How do we speak to rural voters who do nothing other than vote for Republicans? Republicans in rural areas would vote for, especially even the Christian evangelicals, they would vote for Satan if he had an R after his name. And good meaning people in that, well, we have to this, and we have to talk to them, and we have to listen, and we have to hear them, and we have to, well, they don't like this name or this title or this. You know what? I think it just might be time. And I know people are listening to me now in lots of different rural areas, not just in PA, but across the country. If you believe or have been voting yourself Republican and you are in a rural area, I don't care how many guns you have. I don't care whether you believe that two folks of the same gender should get married. I don't care what you believe about what a woman should do with her own body. I don't care. Those beliefs are your own. But let me tell you the truth of your situation. There is an excellent chance. It's not 100%. There is an excellent chance that in your rural area, it is the Democratic Party that brought you the closest road, your school, your post office, your electricity, all part of the New Deal. Perhaps your public park, any flood mitigation that you might have. Oh, but yeah, Kennedy, those are all old things that go back to the New Deal. You're correct. You're correct. So let's update. It's the Democratic Party that is fighting for your land not to be poisoned by fracking. It's the Democratic Party that is fighting for the fossil fuel corporation, that corporate giant, to pay taxes rather than receive free money out of your pocket so that whatever profit they may make is 100% tax-free and can go into their pocket while they poison your land. It's the Democratic Party that is trying to reverse Republican tax incentives that makes it a tax break to send industrial jobs out of the United States. It's the Democratic Party that wants you to vote. The Republican Party doesn't want you to vote. If you're poor, have any shade of color to your skin, if you're too old or too young, and sometimes even if you're female, they don't want you to vote, ever. It's the Democratic Party that would like you to get at least, to restore, by the way, not create out of thin air, but restore the principle that at least 2 years of your higher education be free, if not all 4, if not through your doctorate. It's the Democratic Party that wants your public schools to exist and function and not be a for-profit entity that a precious few can profit from. Betsy DeVos was Trump's Secretary of Education. She ran a department she did not believe should even exist because her family made their billions on for-profit charter schools. You could go to one of her family's schools if you could afford to pay for it. And wherever they could, they tried to suck tax dollars out of the system to get other people to pay for rich white kids to go to their charter schools. Democrats would like everyone to be able to go to school, in a good school, in a safe building, safe from violence and safe from the bloody roof from falling on their heads. In classes not with 30 or 40 or 50 kids, but maybe 15 or 18 or 20. It's Democrats that want the post office to work and even do additional services like basic banking. Maybe even serve as a polling place. Republicans want to end the Postal Service. Republicans that bark and sing and talk about how much they love the Constitution, but would like to end the Postal Service that is specifically laid out in the Constitution. If you're forward thinking enough that you would like an electric car and maybe put solar panels on your roof, Democrats would like to help you do that. Republicans want to keep you from doing that, even if it's your choice, even if it's a free market choice. You going out into the market and making a choice. We don't have to, sorry, rural America, we don't have to kiss your ass. We do need to tell you the truth, and you need to listen to it. And after 30 years of right-wing hate media, it's hard. It's hard to listen to those truths because they're harsh, because they're not what you have had being drilled into your head for 30 years. We don't agree on everything, rural America. But when my policy positions are put up against the ones that you've been told you support, and especially when I take the party affiliations away from those positions, you support all of my positions. It's just that you've been told you don't. You've been told they're bad for you. And none of them are bad for you. It's the Democratic Party that would like your food to be, you know, crazy idea here, safe to eat. Republicans would like meatpacking industry and big agriculture to, quote unquote, self-regulate. How many more incidences of people getting dreadfully ill or dying from their food have we had since the industries have been deregulated and, quote unquote, self-regulated? It's the Democratic Party that believes, trusts, listens to 99+% of all the scientists on Earth related to this topic that know, not think, know that the climate of the planet is fundamentally changing. There's one political entity on Earth, one, that denies the global climate crisis. It's Republicans here in this country. Not in Russia, not in Hungary, not in Poland, not in Turkey, not in the Philippines, not in Brazil, which all have right-wing fascist governments currently. Not even they have denied. Even Bolsonaro, to a point in Brazil, will grant you climate change. He's doing nothing to fight it. In fact, they're deforesting. He's led an effort to deforest the Amazon at a rate that hasn't been seen since the inception and beginnings of the studies of global climate change. But even he doesn't completely deny it. There's one political entity on Earth that dismisses the fact of the global climate crisis, and that's Republicans in the United States. This isn't your party. They believe in nothing that you believe in. We can talk to rural America. I believe it. Yes, we have to listen. Yes, we can have an exchange of ideas. But it's time that we talk to you. It's time that we look you dead in the face and tell you the truth, whether you want to hear it or not. I'd prefer to do it with a handshake, a hug, and a smile. But if I have to do it a little more forcefully and a little more loud, I'll do that too. Because it's the truth. It's the whole damn point. It's the truth. It might not be convenient for you, but it's the truth. And the only way to bring some fairness back to the Senate is to make DC, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands states. And put 6 more Democratic senators in the Senate. And to be honest, when you talk about Puerto Rico, you might not even get 2 Democratic senators out of Puerto Rico because they have a significant amount of Republican leadership. Well, I shouldn't say leadership, representation on the island. The governor, I believe, was a Republican. The mayor of San Juan is a Democrat. We all got to know her after the hurricane hit and the Trump regime did nothing. 7:40 p.m. on the program. 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189. I want to go back through we'll try to get to the top of the hour. I want to get back through a couple of the non-political stories of the week. Some of the science, environmental, and even our furry friend stories that we highlighted on that other side of information from the week. You see me in my 2020-2021 Manchester United kit top jersey. That is because United beat City today. If you are not a fan of the English Premier League, or not a fan of world football, I will try to put it to you this way. And I don't like the comparison, but it's an easy one to comprehend. I think pretty much wherever you are around the country, because the United States is very inward with its sports. United, probably the Yankees of the English Premier League, beat City, the Mets of the Premier League. City recently, within the last 10 years, coming into a endless amount of Arab oil money, has become perennial winners because they've got stupid amounts of money to spend. And they have actually, they're one of the top teams on the planet. But today, United went across the city of Manchester to City's home and beat them and stopped a 28 straight unbeaten streak by City. 2-0 to Manchester United today, second place in the Premier League. So we wear our jersey today. Something I posted a day ago. A 70-year-old albatross bird. What is thought to be the single oldest known wild bird. Her name is Wisdom. And I should think you certainly would have some wisdom at the age of 70. She just gave birth to an albatross chick. Wisdom the albatross, the world's oldest known wild bird, has had a chick at the age of at least 70. She's been tracked and followed in the wild for quite a while. And researchers believe her to be a minimum of 70 years old. Now, the type of albatross that she is a Laysan, Laysan, probably saying it wrong. Normally, they live for anywhere from 12 to 40 years, but Wisdom was first identified in 1956. Not exactly sure how old she was when they first identified her. That's why they say she's at least 70. Albatrosses mate for life, but Wisdom has outlived many of her partners. She just had another chick, and she continues to forage for food for her chick while her current mate takes care of the chick. That's a great story, and it's a miracle, not just because of her age, but to watch the miracle of life, that when wildlife is allowed to be wildlife, when it is left alone, we are the most pervasive creatures on the planet. We get into everything, and we generally destroy it when we do. Here's an albatross that has lived at least 30 years beyond where researchers believe she should have lived. And she's still procreating, alive, happy, hunting, feeding. When we stay the hell out of the way. Which leads me actually to something else I posted earlier in the week. I never got into the universal basic income. let me just say this. Let me see if I can find it now. I can't believe I forgot about universal basic income. I forgot what I was looking for. No, I remembered what I was looking for. Where did you go? Wow, I must have posted this a long time ago. Let me just go out of my head. Of all the mammals on Earth, the total planetary population of mammals, 96% of all the mammals on Earth currently, all of them, 96%, come from two groups: humans and the mammals that we grow for food, livestock, cows, pigs, chickens, goats, etc., etc., etc. Think about that. You watch a BBC nature program and you see the tremendous, beautiful, awe-inspiring diversity of wildlife on this planet. And to think that only 4% of those mammals, I'm not talking about reptiles or insects, the mammals, only 4% of all the mammals on the globe are actual wild life. The other 96%, humans and their livestock. We have grossly disrupted and deformed the ecological balance of this country. 3 days ago, we posted this. Speaking of wildlife, mammals, and deforming and defaming the ecology. Hunters and trappers in Wisconsin killed 216 gray wolves last week during the state's 2021 wolf hunting season. More than 82% above the authorities' stated quota, sparking uproar among animal lovers and conservationists. The kills took place in less than 60 hours, a little over 2.5 days, quickly exceeding Wisconsin's statewide limit of 119. I am not a hunter. I've never been a hunter. I don't have it in me. I do not have it in me to wantonly effort killing an animal. I just don't. My brother is a hunter. I have never dissuaded his hunting. My brother hunts, usually uses bow and arrow only and for deer only. No, he has hunted for other things, but he's never gotten anything. But he has gotten deer. And when he does, he gives me some of the meat. And you know what? I eat it. But when my brother hunts, he hunts in a very, dare I say, native, indigenous, or early colonial style. He uses every bit of the animal. Every bit. Even to a point where he has had in the past the scraps, if you will, and the bones ground down and formed so that he could give it to his dogs. Nothing is wasted, or at least as very little as humanly possible. He does not just hunt, kill, chop the head off, and leave a body to rot, as way too many do. They're trophies to too many people. So I'm not a hunter. He is. I get hunting. I understand it. But it seems to me that there has been a twist, again, a mutancy, a deformity that has crept into hunting, where just, if it's walking on all fours and breathing, we need to hunt it and kill it. And no, I don't think all hunters are that way, so calm down. But when you see something like this, in just a hair over 2 days, a slaughter, and just in one state, I would have hoped we would be better, but we're not. Again, 96% of all the mammals on Earth, humans and their livestock, only 4% wild. But we slaughtered wolves in Wisconsin. New Zealand suffered a series of earthquakes and tsunami warnings this week. A 7.2, an 8 point Siri, I didn't ask. A 7.2, an 8.0, and there was a third that I think may have been an 8.0 as well. Again, because we are so conceited and self-absorbed in this country, I have not seen any reporting on whether they ever did actually get a tsunami. Folks were moved inland. There were tsunami warnings for the northern bits of New Zealand. But it does show you that planet Earth is alive. It still operates. It's still moving and changing. There are volcanoes and earthquakes. The tectonic plates are moving. There's an atmosphere and an ecology and an environment and an atmosphere. This planet is alive. It moves and changes, and things happen here. 3 big, huge earthquakes in New Zealand and off the coast from 3 days ago. The varied and beautiful butterfly species, easy for me to say, that dot the U.S. West are being cut down by the climate crisis, new research has found, with rising temperatures helping cause a steep decline in butterfly numbers over the past 40 years. Gee, 40 years. Where do I usually mention 40 years a lot? Where do I usually mention 40 years so much? Isn't that something? Oh, I found the story now. It's from Madison.com, by the way. Let me make sure that I mention where it came from. Madison.com. 96% humans and livestock, only 4% wild. More than 900 million tons of food is thrown away every single year, according to a global report. The UN Environment Programme's Food Waste Index has revealed that 17% of all the food available to consumers in shops, households, restaurants goes into the rubbish bin. Of that waste, 60% is in our own homes. I mean, when we think about the global amount of starvation and desperation in some nations and some, not just nations, it goes beyond borders, but some areas of our globe that are so desperate for food. And we just throw food away at alarming rates. Anyone who knows me will tell you, I despise throwing away food. I don't care how little bit it is. Even the bottom of a potato chip bag where all the crushed little bits are, I will either eat it, I will put it out for the birds, I will try to coat something with it and cook it. It makes me mental. I hate it. I don't want to throw away an ounce of anything. It's wasteful. And it makes me crazy. There will be a monument at the U.S. Capitol for former Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I can think of nothing more appropriate. And let me quickly talk about the universal basic income. Seems like a sad thing for me to leave for the last 5 minutes. I've meant to speak about it all night. But as you know, I can get on these rants. There's been 2 major studies recently about the universal basic income. One was in Stockton, California, where a randomly chosen 125 people were given $500 a month for 2 years, no restrictions. The city gave them $500 a month. No restrictions on how to spend it, how to use it, what to do with it, nothing. So what happened? Well, Republicans will tell you that if we ever did this, well, everybody will quit work and they'll just sit home and they'll be lazy. Well, here's what happened. They paid off debt. I can tell you if I got a UBI, that would be the first thing I would do, would pay off debt. A percentage of them got full-time jobs, more than had full-time jobs when this experiment started. Because they stopped having multiple part-time jobs, because the $500 gave them the room to search for full-time jobs. And they all reported significant improvements in their emotional and mental health because they didn't have the stress of worrying about money as much. There's a second study done in Europe, and I know that Republicans found a tiny bit of solace in it because the percentage of folks that were in this experiment actually worked less. But when you dig into the numbers, what they found is that it was folks who had a full-time job and a part-time job. And what the UBI gave them was the ability to drop the part-time job. Also both studies show that it leads to better quality time with family, better educational results for children, because the parents have more time with the kids to work on schoolwork. The UBI works. Bottom line, period, end of story. And the UBI, by the way, universal basic income, is going to become more and more prevalent and more, you're going to hear more and more about it as automation and computerization, robotics, self-driving cars, trucks, etc. And I think an increase in the proliferation of more mass transportation. I don't think we're going to sell more cars on this planet. I think we're actually going to go back the other way into more mass people moving transportation. Trains, buses, monorails, elevated rail, etc. The UBI is going to become a much more, forgive me, universal thing. Let me end with a good story. This one meant a lot because I have cats myself, and I've always had cats since I was an adult, really. Never had them when I was a kid. It's a series of pictures. You will know if you're familiar with the home Facebook page that I will post from The Guardian and the BBC especially. Sort of photo essays or best pictures of the week. This particular group of pictures is of a man named Sake Kato, and I might be mispronouncing the first name. It's a Japanese name, and I have no fluency in Japanese whatsoever. But Mr. Kato lives still. He never left the evacuated radiation zone of the Fukushima nuclear power plant. He stayed. To be blunt, how he's still alive is a miracle. The series of photos says nothing about his health, but it does speak about the condition of those he cares for. Mr. Kato stayed in the nuclear zone. And he stayed because he felt sorry and felt a responsibility to the animals left behind, especially the domesticated animals, in this case, cats. Sake Kato stayed behind a decade ago. And if you're not familiar, it's been 10 years since the earthquake and tsunami off the coast of Japan, which destroyed the nuclear power plant at Fukushima. Radioactive water from which, by the way, has made it to the US West Coast. Actually made it here a long time ago and continues to come over. To rescue abandoned cats whose owners fled radiation clouds from the Fukushima nuclear plant. Sake Kato plays with Makun and Charm, who are infected with feline leukemia virus. Kato looks after 41 cats in his home and another empty building on his property. He searches, he climbs, here's a picture of him here, climbs up a ladder into a second floor of an abandoned house that he has converted into a cat shelter. Kato walks with his rescue dog on an empty road in restricted zones of the Fukushima prefecture. I don't want to leave. I like living in these mountains, Kato said. An aerial view of Kato's house standing close to a field that is being decontaminated, which is riotous. All you can do is scrape off. Basically what they do, in my understanding, is they scrape off the top levels of soil and get down to a point where it isn't radioactive, except that Fukushima, the plant, is still emitting tremendous amounts of radiation. So the point, I don't know. Kato's house and rooms are filled with supplies for cats and dogs. And there's just a series of pictures here of kittens and cats. He even feeds some wild roaming boars and a series of cattle, what appears. The Ranch of Hope, which is a cattle farm owned by a neighbor of his. He defied an order from the Japanese government to kill his livestock and let them live, and continues to live there and take care of them and allow them to pass naturally. And there's so many different stories in this story. The dangers of nuclear power, the heavy hand of government, the complete uncaring of people who would leave these sentient, beautiful, wonderful souls to die in irradiated death. And the powerful, powerful beauty of this very, very small handful of people who won't let these wonderful creatures die alone. So many things to take from a story like this. One of God's great mysteries, one of God's great ironies, one of the terrible, terrible things in God's setup for us, for this world, is the way, the short lifespans he gives these wonderful, wonderful souls. The domesticated animals especially, who love unconditionally. How many times have we seen a dog treated like absolute garbage by the quote-unquote human owner, and yet that dog does nothing but love that owner unconditionally? And you can see in the photos, I hope you'll go to the Facebook page and see the article. You can see the way the cats love unconditionally Mr. Sato. One has to think that they know somewhere deep inside that he's given his life for them, because he has. And yet, if it wasn't for the sheer danger and recklessness of nuclear power, none of that would have happened. I never saw a solar panel leak radiation, and I never saw a wind turbine irradiate anything. Fukushima continues to take in seawater to try to cool the unprotected nuclear cores and release that heavily irradiated seawater back out into the ocean, and the currents bring it to the west coast of the United States. It's happening right now as we speak, and it's been happening for years. So a story with many, many levels to it. Many levels. But I hope you'll have a look at it, and I hope you'll take some good from it, and I hope it makes you, if you have quote-unquote pets in your home, I hope it'll make you look at them in a very different way. I said that was going to be the last thing, but let me make this the last thing. NASA's Perseverance rover has begun to move. If you go to YouTube, by the way, and probably the NASA website as well, you can watch what Perseverance is doing. Sometimes it's live, sometimes it's recorded video, but you can see, you can watch, you can stream what Perseverance is looking at and what it's doing. So I hope you will do that. It is a remarkable, remarkable scientific achievement, and one that is quite worthy of your attention. That in all likelihood will be it for us this evening. It's just a hair after 8 p.m. here on the East Coast. We thank Jordy for being our caller tonight, and I chastise the rest of you for not doing the same. We will return next week. The next off week, the next week that there will be no live program will be Easter Sunday. So we will be here with you. Oh, goodness. I didn't punch up the calendar. We will be here on the 14th, the 21st, and the 28th. April 4th is Easter. We won't be with you then, and then we will return after that. We'll be with you straight through to Memorial Day, and so on and so on and so on. But the point is that we're going to be here. So, folks, I give you the phone number. You better learn it. Use it. I am going to give you another phone number before we leave. If you feel strongly about any of the policies or the legislation that we talked about this evening, let me give you the number of the congressional switchboard. Call Congress. You can call Congress and speak to the office of your representatives. If you don't know who your member of the House is, that didn't come out right. If you do not know who your member of the House of Representatives is, or even if you may not know who your two senators are, the good people answering the phone at the congressional switchboard will connect you. You can tell them your zip code. They will tell you who your rep is and connect you. They will tell you who your senators are and connect you. When you speak to someone in that office, be quick, be polite, short, to the point, calm, collected, pleasant, the whole deal. They're just human beings at that switchboard doing a job. They're just people in those offices for the most part answering the phone. Sometimes they're even unpaid college students and interns. No need to scream, yell, and be crazy. They're not going to pay attention to you. They might even hang up on you. Nice, brief, 30-second call Congress. If you feel strongly about something, anything that we talked about, if you want to see H.R. 1 passed, if you want to see that $15 minimum wage, you want to see the George Floyd Policing Act passed, call Congress. And think about the last couple human interest stories that we talked about. You want to see better environmental protections? Would you like to see our furry families treated better? Personally, I don't think there's going to be an end to this mass slaughter of hunting and animal abuse ever ended until we create a new designation for animals. They cannot continue to be considered property. We need to find some type of legal classification for them somewhere between property and human sentience, because obviously they can't speak and represent themselves in court, somewhere along the line of children, because children can't represent themselves in court to the same extent that adults can either. I don't think we're ever going to end animal abuse like we see in this country. If we can't, we need to find a new legal designation for our furry friends and for wildlife as a whole, to be honest, before we completely wipe it out. But do you support NASA? Do you think what's happening with the Perseverance rover is just about, well, it is rolling, isn't it, on the surface of Mars, is just about the most amazing thing you've ever seen, and you think NASA deserves our support? Call Congress and tell them. Perhaps all of space exploration should not be private. I happen to believe that. I don't think the private industry has any room in space exploration. I don't believe in it. I think it's the government's role. That's my personal opinion. I don't happen to enjoy SpaceX or Bezos's new space firm or any of that. I don't. It's not my thing. But anyway, you'll see on the screen right there for you. You can call Congress, talk to your reps, tell them what you're thinking in a polite, very brief way. But those phone calls matter. They do work and they do mean something. So I encourage you all to call Congress. 202-224-3121. 202-224-3121. Call Congress. Get connected to your member of the House of Representatives, connect to your two senators, and tell them what you think. For DJ Lex, DJ Earl at Hot101.net, for my sister from a different mister, my dear, dear friend, my all too often psychologist, and who was in the room watching earlier tonight. Hopefully she's still around listening. My dearest God-sent heaven sent greatest gift, one of the greatest gifts of a human being I've ever received in my life, April Riddick, to technical producer and my dear friend and his wife, George Dare and Lynn. And for me, Jeff Kennedy, that's the end of our program for this week. Please check on family, friends. In this pandemic is still going. Yes, we are vaccinating at a really good clip, but not enough for national immunity quite yet. So please check on everybody. Be kind to them. Let's have conversations, not arguments. So until next week, I'm Jeff Kennedy for the whole crew here for the Kennedy Effect. Thank you for being here. We shall see you next week. Please be good to yourselves and each other. Good night for now.